while explaining the acoustic analysis of vowels, you may already know that vowels can be distinguished in terms of the frequency values, right? And then also in terms of the spectrographic, visual images, that how those darker, those bands which are darker value, where the concentration of energy is visible on the spectrograph, right? So these are the features through which we can understand vowels, right? But there is an interesting discussion for this session, that how can we relate the the traditional description of vowels, like in terms of the front division and back division of vowels, and then also like the higher and the lower vowels, right? Like the close open, right, in American terms, right? So how can we relate the traditional description of vowels with this experimental description, right? Since the acoustic description is, I'm calling it the experimental description, right? When you are analyzing a speech sound through Pratt, and you are talking about the spectrograms and also the acoustic, statistics, like those frequencies of sounds, right? So how can we relate these two types of methodologies in order to distinguish vowels, right? So acoustically, first three frequencies are important, right? F1, F2, and F3. And on the basis of these three formats, we can distinguish among vowels, right? That's the concept. So further developing this concept and relating it with the traditional articulatory description of vowels, we need to create a connection. And luckily, there is a very interesting and very positive connection, which we can further evaluate and analyze, right? So there is one hint that the increase and decrease in F1, right, the formant 1, that is something related to the, the high and low position, right? If you remember that those front vowels, right, or back vowels, right, but when they are at the higher position, like they are high vowels, like E or U, right, they have little value for their F1, right? So there is a connection, right? And then similarly, while developing this, we can also predict that how is this connection found, like when the F1 is increased, right? So what happened? So the point is that then the vowels are, comparatively lower, right? They are going lower down when the increase in the F1 is given, right? So there is the inverse relationship between F1, the formant one, and then the low position of the vowel, right? The more F1, the lower the vowel is. So therefore, that's the inverse relationship. And then we also can think about the F2 value of the vowels, right? So higher is the F2. So there is the positive relationship about the frontness. The more frontal the vowel is, right? Like for example, it would be highest for the most front vowel, right? Like the E or A, they would be their value for F2 would be higher than those for the back vowels like O or U, right? So there is a connection between the traditional descriptive, methodology, and then also the experimental, the frequencies, right? And the relationship is between this traditional and experimental description, and that's more visible, more understandable, and quite interesting when we are plotting the frequencies for the various vowels on on a chart, right? So let me show you the chart on the basis of the earlier given frequencies of the vowels for you, right? So it's the chart, and you can think about the possibilities now, right? We are starting with the 0 is basically on the right corner on top, right? So that's the 0. F2 would increase towards front, right? You see? That's increased, like it's 1,000, is 1,500, is 2,000, and then it's 2500, right? So with the gap of 500, you can see that this is F2, right? That's an important idea. And then this F1 is on the vertical axis, right? F1, and it is increasing towards the lower position. So this is the inverse position, okay? The inverse relationship. When the F2 is smaller, when it's a low value, then the vowel would be higher, right? Since this is the higher position, right? And the mid-high position, right? Somewhere here, the mid-low position, and then the low position, right? So if you just see this chart of the vowel in terms of the frequencies number, the values for their F1 and F2. So just on the basis of F1 and F2, we can create this comparison of the traditional descriptive, methodology, and then relating it with the frequency and the formants values, right? And there is the relationship, a very clear-cut relationship. You see, oo, oo, right? So it is with almost 300 or 310 value, right? Between 300 and 310 here, right? So, and it is, the F1 is increasing and we are going from high to low vowels, right? So, O, then and then A, right? So that's the increase of F1, and we are actually going down from high to low vowel, right? And then this connection for F2, when it is lower, then we have bake vowels, right? Bake, center, and front, right? So when it is increasing, we are going from the bake to the front position, right? Like for E, which is the most front vowel, right? So it has the maximum, like 2400, around about 2400 value for its F2. And then A, which is little bit from the back side, right? Little big, then the E. So you see it's the 2000 value for F2 for this sound. And same is the case with other vowels, right? So you just see that when the value is decreased, the sounds are produced more from the back part of the cavity. And that's a very interesting coordination between the two types of methodologies.